Good night, everyone. Tonight, God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Herman J. Space Divine. I'm here to give you a word on tonight, and we're going to talk about Clavius. You know, him and Joshua got older. You know, yesterday I told you that God had told him he old, but both of them around the same age. You know, but I guess Jacob did more fighting and war, so I guess Jacob can't go no more. But Clarence, he said he could go. You know, he said he's still strong than what he was 45 years ago. And let's talk about come from Joshua chapter 13, verse 1 through 15. Okay, so now Joshua had grown old. The Lord says to him, "You are now very old, and there are still very large areas of the land to be taken." You know, you're still, Canaanites is big, is large. You know, so they still is taking lands. You know, until they took all the lands. Because, see, all of them, it's 200 million Israelites. You know, so everybody got to get their part of their inheritance because God said he was going to give them that land. And God also told them to grow as a nation. You know, so now Joshua was getting old, and he was between 85 to 100 years old at this time. You know, so God, however, still have work for him to do. So it don't matter how old he is. You know, when God got you a job to do, he still expect for it to do it until you can't see or you can't move or whatever. So God telling him, I said I got work for you to do. You know, you still got land to conquer. You know, but I guess you were moving like a slow person. You know, so God had to say something. You know, so God, however, still had work for him to do. So our culture often glorifies the young and the strong and set aside those who are older. But yet, older people are filled with wisdom, you know, that comes with experience. You know, so they are very capable of serving if given the chance and should be encouraged to do so. Now, we see that God done toss you on the side when you're old because, see, God's still trying to get Joshua, God said, I still have work for you to do, you know. And I guess Joshua started acting like an old person, so God had to tell him, I still got work for you to do. Are you able to still do it? So now we see that no matter how old you get, God still have work for us to do. So don't forget, when you're on a journey and you working under God, you get old. I mean, God still got work for you. You know, you gotta let God know if you can still do it, or you need to sit down in your rocking chair. You know, so there are lands still to be taken. So we're gonna go with Clarence. Joshua 14, 6 through 15. Okay, so now the people of Judah approached Joshua again and Clarence. So Clarence said that he was 40 years old when Moses was a servant. When he was a servant under Moses. Because see, him and Joshua was in their 40s. They was in their 40s. But now they like 85 years old. So they've been serving God for a long time. So of the Lord, so and he brought him back a good report. See, Clarence, he going way back. Because him and Joshua was a spy. They came back with a good report. That's what he's saying. We came back with a good report. According to his conviction, the heart of the people melt in fear. Because you had the other ones went along with them. But they came back with a bad report with the third generation. And remember, they were so scared of fear, so they didn't even want to walk into their promised land. So that was the fourth generation who conquered their land. So that's what Clarence said. He said that had the Israelite heart melted, had them in fear. But I came back with a good report. So then he said, ever follow the law? He's followed the law, my God, wholeheartedly. So he was saying he was faithful to God. He said he was faithful to God wholeheartedly through the whole time. So when Moses had leave, he said, the land on which your feet have walked will be your inheritance. Now, see, God made this promise to him 45 years ago. He made this promise to him 45 years ago. Because he was fond of him and Joshua. Saying that of your children forever. So God had told him, what your feet have walked would be your inheritance. And that of your children forever. Because we have followed the Lord, our God, wholehearted. So God promised this to him 45 years ago when he was in his 40s. God told him, the land that you're standing on, will be your inheritance for your children forever. So now both Joshua and Clarence are older, and both were spies, are Canaanites, and came back with a good report. But when they was under Moses, they both had followed God wholeheartedly. So there are still land to be taken, and there was like 40 years ago. But now there are 85 years. 85 years ago. So that was like 45 years ago. So now Clarence said to God, promise. He said God had promised to keep him alive for 45 years. And since he started out with Moses, and God did just that. Because see, God promised an inheritance for him. So that means he had to live to conquer that land to receive it. So now Clarence has said he's still as strong as today, as the day that Moses has sent him out. I'm just as a veteran to go out to battle as I was then. So he 85 years old. He said, I'm still strong. I'm still able to go out there and drive them out just like I did before. Now we see somebody 85 years old, saying he's still strong. He's still strong and mighty. He ready to go take and conquer some more lands. He said he ain't ready to sit down in a rocking chair. He ain't ready to roll over. He still want to fight some more. And that's how we got to be on our journey. We got to keep on fighting until we can't fight no more. I know I'm doing it. I'm tired. Joshua was tired, but he just feel like he just giving up, passing on to Clarence. But Clarence, both of them in at 85 years old. But he said, I'm still strong. I'm still strong and mighty. I can still go and drive them out. Long as I got God helping me. Because, beginning, he said God helped him out. And God promised inheritance. And God promised to keep him living, to receive the inheritance. So Clarence 85 years old, and now God said there are lands still to be taken. To Ammonites. Now he said the Ammonites, the city was large, and fortified. But the Lord is helping me, and he will drive them out just as he said. So he's saying, he said, I know they're giants. I know they're large. I was one of the spies. But we still drove them out. And he said, I can do it again. He 85 years old. He said, I can still drive them out. So now Joshua and Clarence are old. 85 years old. I'm saying, oh, that's what's in the Bible. I know you're not supposed to call nobody old, but I'm just repeating what's in the Bible. So Joshua can't go. Joshua can't go no more. But Clarence said, he are still strong. He still wants to drive them out. A lot of days I be tired, and sometimes I be dragging like I ain't got no strength. I have to pray to God to give me strength, because when you're on there, because me, I'm like Clarence. I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to keep on praying to God to give me some strength to keep on fighting this race. You know, Clarence, he ready to keep on fighting. He said, I'm strong and I want to keep on fighting. And that's how we have to do. You know, he served under God 45 years. And he said he still wants to keep on fighting. You know, long as he under God, he said God kept on helping him. He said God had said, I'm gonna keep you alive to receive your blessing, and God did just that. You know, he's still alive and conquering these lands, and he ready to go conquer some more. You know, so if you have to see 85 years old, it's a blessing. It's a blessing because how life is today, you know, to be 85 years old, it's a blessing. To make it to 60 and 70, it's a blessing. You know, it's a blessing when you get to that age. And especially when you get to 85 years old and you still strong, you still can run. I mean, you can still fight. You know, for him to conquer the land, he got to run. He had to still be fighting. I mean, he can still swing his arm and his leg, and he talking about still fighting that battle. I mean, he got all parts of his body still strong and active. You know, so if you live to see 85 years old, it's a blessing, and he are still strong. Cause you remember when Moses died, God said Moses was still strong. His eyes and everything was still strong, but it was his time. You know, so Clarence is saying the same thing. He said, I'm strong. I can still fight war. You know, I can still drive them out. You know, so the Israelite had said to Clarence, you know, he followed the Lord, you know, the God of Israel wholehearted. You know, him and Joshua were faithful. That's why Joshua had got picked. You know, Joshua was faithful. You know, him, both of them, they were spies, and they come back with a good report. You know, they didn't care how big those people was. They didn't care how thick that door was, that gate was. You know, they came back with a good report, said, we got this. We can take them out. And Clarence still saying it today. You know, I'm strong. He ready to still fight in battle. You know, so although Clarence is in his 80s, you know, he is still as physical fit as he had been 45 years ago. You know, so this might seem impressive, you know, but there is something even more noteworthy. You know, Clarence is still as spiritual, fit, and healthy as he was all those years ago. You know, so they was at their prime time when they was in their 40s. You know, they probably looked good and everything else. You know, and then 85 years old and you still got energy to fight war. That's amazing. You know, so what's a blessing? What's a blessing? It will be to reach 85 years old. You know, to reach 85 years old in this time, you know, it's a blessing and it's amazing. You know, to be physical strong. You know, what a greater testimony. You know, to reach a lifetime that following God wholehearted. You know, so he followed God for 45 years. That was amazing. You know, so that was his lifetime. You know, they had fun, him and Joshua. You know, that was good, ready to fight battle. You know, so then Joshua had blessed Clarence and give him Hero as his inheritance. Now Hero had belonged to Clarence ever since because he had followed the Lord, the God of Israel, wholehearted. Haran used to be called Karan, you know, but now we see that Joshua is blessing Clarence, giving him an inheritance. But that's only the blessing that God already had promised to him. You know, God promised inheritance to him on that land. And he only is given the promise that God had promised him. You know, so who was the greatest man among the Ammonites? You know, and then the land had rest for war. You know, so once they settled and conquered that land, God ain't give them no war for a while. So they rest on war for right now. You know, so Clarence, he was faithful, you know, from the start, you know, as one of the original spies, He sent into the promised land and he saw a great city. Giant. Now he saw them people big and tall, but he didn't come back and stir the Israelite up. He said we can take them out. So he said, I saw great cities, and giant, but yet he knew God would help the people conquer the land. So that's what his thought was. When he had went to go spy that land out, he saw them big old people. He saw them giants. He saw the thick gate. He saw all that. But he said, I knew God was going to help us conquer that land. And that's how we have to do. We have to keep on pressing our way through. Because we have to believe that God, this how Job was. Job went through all that pain and suffer. Irma going through all that pain and suffer. But right there that God is right there. And that's what Clarence said. He said, I didn't come back with no bad report. I saw them big old people. I saw the large people. I saw the thick door, the gate. I saw all that. But he said, I knew that God was going to help us. He said, I knew God was going to help them conquer their land. And God did just that. So he said that was on his mind. He saw all them big people that they came back and told, but he wasn't going to tell the Israelites that because he know one thing, God was going to help them conquer their land. So God will help the people conquer the land because of Clarence's faith. God promised him a personal inheritance. So see, God already promised a personal inheritance. When Joshua tried to give him one. Joshua God promised this to him 45 years ago. God said the land that you standing on. Cause you remember they was in Canaan. They was in Canaan before they even got to Egypt. On the land. So 45 years later, the land was given to him. So 45 years later, he finally got his inheritance. He got his inheritance. It took 45 years. But God still stuck to his promise. God sticks to his promise. Even though it took 45 years, even though it took to Israel 430 years, God made his promise. He rescued them from slavery. He gave Clarence his inheritance. So Clarence was faithful to God at start and through his entire life. Up until now. So when Joshua gave Clarence an inheritance, it was only a promise from God 45 years ago. So we see that Clarence's promise was fulfilled. So his promise was fulfilled, by God. So our greatest promise, are yet to be fulfilled. So we all, if any one of us is still waiting on a promise for God, it's yet to be fulfilled. Because if he felt Clarence's promise after 45 years, what he gonna do with us? He gonna fulfill our promise. So our greatest promise are yet to be fulfilled. This give us much to look forward to. If Clarence waited 45 years for his blessing, and he received it 45 years later. It's an Israelite was in slavery for 440 years. When God promised to Joseph, tell them, I'm going to come back for him. God came back for him. Because God going to stick to his promise. He came back for him. He rescued them from slavery and also helped them got to their promised land. 45 years ago, he promised Clarence, inheritance on that land. And he received it after 45 years. So we have to look at, our promise. It might seem a long time. But if God fulfilled both of these promises at a long period of time, and we seem like ours taking a long time, it will be fulfilled. It will be fulfilled. So we see Clarence here will fulfill after 45 years. So we will let our faith grow as we realize that God keep his word. And that will be holding, that will keep me holding on. Keep pressing my way through. When we have faith and allow our faith to grow, you know, we will realize that God keep his word. This is two situations right here I just told you. You know, so God kept his word with the Israelites and Clarence, you know, he will do the same for us. You know, but we have to, sometimes our faith may wave. I'm not perfect in my stone. Sometimes your faith may wave, you know, but you cannot stay in that wave with faith. You cannot stay in that doubt. You got to shift it, you know. So the word is today that Clarence, I ain't pronouncing it right, but God made a promise to him 45 years ago. You know, and you know they didn't say too much about Clarence and Joshua until they went and spy out the land. You know, just like he said, I know I saw those tall giant people. I saw the gate, but I wasn't gonna come back and tell Israel and them that because I know my mighty God was gonna help them conquer their land, and God did just that. You know, God did just that. You know, he 85 years old. He's still ready to go to war. He's still strong. He still got energy. His eyes is not weak. He ready to still go. I mean, he been following God, being faithful them whole 45 years. You know, him and Joshua. You know, but Joshua at that age now, he ready. He ready to depart and pass that on to Clem. Clem say, I can still conquer. Cause it doesn't matter how old you get. Because when God got wait for you and you get old, God's like, I still have land for y'all to conquer. What are you talking about old? You know, I still have work for you to do. You know, so Clem said, I do it. He said, I do it. I'm still strong. You know, I still got some fight in me. You know, I could still drive them out. He said, as long as I got God helping me, because he said God help him back then. You know, so now we know the story, you know, about them and being a spy. And he said why, you know, why did not come back and tell the Israelites, you know, about those people. Because he said he know the mighty God was going to save them. You know, because you know our mighty God, he mighty in battle. You know, we see that. We see that. And so Clara had so much faith in God. He said, I know my mighty God is going to save them. I know he's going to help them conquer their land. So that's why I didn't come back and tell them about the big, large giants. I didn't come back and tell them about them big old thick gates. Because I know God was going to help them conquer their land. You know, the other ones, you know, they come back and say, oh, they're too tall, the gate too thick, you know. And God got rid of that group. Because see, God don't want you to think like that. God wants you to think, he wants you to think big. He wants you to come back like Joshua and Clarence came back. Oh, we could take them. We could take them. You know, so he didn't look at the giant. He didn't look at the big old thick gate. He looked at how big our God is. And that's how we got to do. You know, we got to realize, look how big our God is. You know, Clarence said, I saw them big old people. I saw that big old thick girl. You know, some people are big like that. But we also got a mighty God that can beat giant, that can tear down thick gates. You know, I know our mighty God was going to save them and help them conquer their land. And God did just that. You know, so that was his story of why he wasn't worrying about them big old people. He wasn't worrying about that big old thick gate. You know, because he know God could tear that gate down. You know, he know God was going to help them conquer their land. You know, so that's all the word I have for y'all tonight. Y'all have a blessed night, and I'll see y'all in the next video.